Hello, YouTube. This is the Thrifty Traveler team, and today we are answering all of your questions related to airline vouchers and refunds. I'm Jared Kamrowski, the founder of Thrifty Traveler, and with me I have Kyle Potteter, our editor-in-chief, and Nick Serati, Thrifty Traveler's co-founder. So we're going to be going through very, very quickly all of kind of the most recent updates related to refunds, and then we're going to be answering all of your questions. So let's just start it off right away with Kyle. What are the things that people need to know about refunds? How do they know their rights?
Yeah, so the biggest thing to keep in mind is that there is a U.S. law from the Department of Transportation, and it says if your airline cancels your flight, then that airline owes you the option of a refund. That doesn't matter whether you're flying a U.S. airline like Delta or Southwest, or if you've got a flight with Lufthansa or British Airways or any other foreign carrier from the United States to Europe or vice versa. As long as your flight touches U.S. soil, it's within the United States, if it's departing the United States or coming back, your airline owes you a refund if they cancel your flight. Now, the same is true if your airline significantly changes your flight, meaning, they change it by a certain amount of hours. And this is where it starts to get kind of tricky, because each airline kind of decides how generous it wants to be with what constitutes a significant change. For Delta says, if we change your flight by more than 90 minutes, when you depart or arrive, we'll give you a refund. American says that threshold is 4 hours. United says it's 6 hours. So your flight times have to change by at least 6 hours in order to be eligible for a refund. And then you start to get into, some budget airlines like Spirit and Frontier and Sun Country, and they're even a little more stingier in some cases. So it can just vary a lot. But needless to say, if, your flight time changes by a significant amount, you may be eligible for a refund. The same is also true if you book a nonstop flight, say, Minneapolis to Palm Springs. And you're supposed to get there just in one segment, but the airline changes it and you have to stop in Salt Lake City or Chicago or wherever. In those cases, generally, you're also going to be eligible for a refund. So you just need to keep that in mind, especially because, what we're seeing is that airlines aren't really being forthcoming with passengers when telling them about changes to their flight schedule, about when they're eligible for a refund. In many cases, you'll just get an email from your airline that says, hey, sorry, your flight time changed by 6 hours. Here's a voucher if you want to cancel. In reality, U.S. law says that the airline actually owes you the option of a refund. So it's really up to all of you to know what your rights are in these cases and start to push back to make sure you actually get your money back rather than just a voucher for future travel. One of the biggest things that we've been telling people over the last few weeks is when your airline isn't helping out, when they're not giving you the refund that they legally owe you, file a complaint with the Department of Transportation. We've got information about how to do this at thriftytraveler.com/refunds, along with a handy flow chart that kind of guides you through all of the different things that you need to know to sort out your travel plans. But the Department of Transportation can be, a really good ally in terms of leaning on your airline to do what the law requires, which is give you a refund when they change your flight plans. And finally, kind of the last resort option here is to file a credit card chargeback on your account. This is, what you do when you pay for a service or a product and you don't get it. That's what's happening when, the airline isn't refunding you for a flight that gets canceled. Again, should really be a last resort. You don't want to go to that path immediately, generally speaking, but definitely a good way to make sure you get your money back if the airline owes you it.
So what kind of resources does Thrifty Traveler have as far as, figuring out, are you due, a voucher or a refund?
Yeah, I mean, this has really been all we've been doing on our website for the past few months now, as people's travel plans have gotten blown up by coronavirus. So if you go to thriftytraveler.com/COVID-19, all one word, no dashes, thriftytraveler.com/COVID-19, I mean, that's all of our articles about coronavirus live there. So you can scroll through kind of the daily updates, guides for getting refunds, guides for using vouchers. We've really got everything that lives there on that page. And then I also mentioned our flow chart to help you figure out, what your situation is based upon your flight. Jared's holding it up there. And kind of guide you to the right decision for your individual travel plans, along with links to additional resources about, how the vouchers work and what flights might be eligible for a refund versus a voucher for future travel. So that's a great resource. That's at thriftytraveler.com/refunds.
Yeah, because Kyle, well, let's just go through kind of introductions again, because we have a lot of new people that have joined us since the beginning. I'm Jared Kamrowski, the founder of Thrifty Traveler. In the middle, we've got Kyle Potteter, our editor-in-chief, and on the right, we have Nick Serati, Thrifty Traveler's co-founder. And today, we're answering all of your questions about airline refunds and vouchers. We've become at Thrifty Traveler big consumer advocates for you guys, trying to make sure that if you are due a refund, you know your rights to a refund. Because, of course, with all the very liberal cancellation policies that the airlines are offering for past bookings as well as future bookings, getting a voucher is relatively easy. But then you're locked in with that airline on a future flight. And if we can help you guys get that cash back in your pocket through a refund, I mean, that's always going to be our goal. So yeah, like Kyle was saying, we have a great flow chart at thriftytraveler.com/refunds. And then we also have a lot of COVID-19 travel information, tips and tricks at thriftytraveler.com/COVID-19, all one word. And of course, here on our YouTube channel, Thrifty Traveler's YouTube channel, make sure you're subscribed. And we are putting out, we put out a vouchers and refunds video a couple weeks ago, and we have another one coming out next week, and we're going to be having so much more video content via YouTube coming out in the future. So make sure you're subscribed to our daily newsletter as well at thriftytraveler.com, as well as all of our video content here on YouTube. All right, so let's open it up to questions. For those of you guys who are watching, we'd love to see your comments. We're going to put them right up on the screen, and we're going to do our best to answer them. If you can make them, as short as possible, because we're actually going to put them on screen, that'd be really helpful. If you can make it super succinct and easy to read, we are going to get through them. All right, so Annie asks, and I will size this up on the screen. Just give me a second. Annie asks, Sun Country is awful. No real changes in its policy since the pandemic began. How often are airlines canceling and or rescheduling flights, especially at MSP? So Kyle, maybe if you just want to talk a little bit, just very briefly about, Sun Country, which doesn't, actually does have some pretty great cancellation policies and always has, at least in the last, couple years. If maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, and then we can talk a little bit about cancellations at MSP.
Yeah, so we wrote about Sun Country's overarching cancellation policy, and that's broader than just the coronavirus situation. And I apologize in advance if I'm not remembering the specifics, but basically, if you cancel as long as at least 60 days in advance before your flight, you're going to get a voucher for the full value of your ticket. And then there are some fees that, ramp up a little bit as you get a little bit closer, say like 2 weeks before departure. But in general, it's a pretty generous cancellation policy. And Sun Country, at least for a while, was being even more generous just due to coronavirus. I'm not sure exactly where that policy stands right now. But regardless, I mean, the biggest thing that people should take away from, this discussion about refunds versus vouchers and what are you going to get is that you should absolutely wait to cancel your flights. There's no reason, if you've got a flight coming up this summer or June or even as late out as September or really whenever, the best thing that you can do is wait as long as you can, because airlines are drastically cutting their schedules right now. They're, if they normally fly, Minneapolis to Chicago 8 times a day, they're probably only doing it once, maybe twice now. And so as we get closer to what your scheduled departure date is, there are very good odds that the flight that you booked is not going to be the flight that you're actually scheduled to depart on. And that's where these rules about when you're due a refund come in. If your flight gets canceled, you get a refund. If your flight gets changed by, as little as 90 minutes to as much as 6+ hours, you're due a refund. If, the airline adds a stop when you initially booked a nonstop flight, you're due a refund. So just waiting to see how the airline handles the flight that you initially booked is the best thing that you can do to try to make sure you get your money back.
All right, let's move. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to say real quick, echoing, what Kyle said, there's no reason to cancel now if you've got a flight later on. A lot of the airlines haven't even really dealt with their schedule, the schedule changes that are going to be coming for stuff that's, further out than June at this point. So, if you have a flight this fall or even later this summer, like Kyle said, just definitely wait. There's more than likely going to be a schedule change that could qualify you for a refund as long as it meets the parameters that we already discussed.
Yeah, just kind of an overarching theme is if you have not had a cancellation or, a schedule change yet for your upcoming flight, the big thing is wait, because, some airlines are, canceling at last minute, maybe 48 hours before. And there's no reason to take the voucher early if you're going to be stuck with the voucher. Try to wait for those schedule change. Try to wait for that cancellation so you can get the cash refund. Cash in your pocket. That's what we want. And we assume that you guys want as well. All right, so the next question, and a lot of these are kind of along the same lines. So the next question is, I booked the crazy MSP to Tokyo deal on Air Canada. The flight has not been canceled, but I may not be able to enter Japan due to their new travel restrictions. What are my options? So I'll just go ahead. I'll take this one. Wait. Wait and see. If you can't enter the country, that is going to be a big determinant of, likely, that those flights will be canceled. If Air Canada, can't fly people to Canada due to restrictions from that that destination, more than likely we'll see cancellations. All right. And I'll keep going through questions. Great questions, guys. So keep them coming. All right. Michael says, all right, great question, Michael. I posted on TT's Facebook. They have a Condor flight in May, and they're only offering a voucher. Michael read about legislation protecting airlines' cash reserves, allowing them to avoid paying cash. So one of you guys want to talk a little bit about, what's happening in Europe or with the EU, some of that legislation. Does that impact, U.S. flyers getting a refund?
No, I mean, if your flight touches U.S. soil, the U.S. Department of Transportation rules apply. So that means that if that flight gets canceled, or the schedule changes significantly, the airline owes you a refund. I suppose that could change, but the Department of Transportation has been very clear that there's no excuse for airlines not to be giving out refunds. So I would just, cite those DOT regulations with Condor and insist that you get a refund if your flight has been canceled. And if that doesn't work, file a complaint with the Department of Transportation. thriftytraveler.com/refunds has more resources on how you can actually file that complaint. But that's a great way to get some more pressure on the airline.
All right. Yeah, great question, Michael. And I think Nick and Kyle, you would agree that some airlines are better than others. For the most part, Delta's been probably the best, if not one of the best. As far as, when people are due a refund, making it relatively easy for them to get a refund. United's been a little bit more difficult, changing some of their, significant change policies as far as it used to be 2 hours and now a significant change, is 6 hours, which, then they don't have to give out as many refunds. It would be nice if the U.S. Department of Transportation had more specific rules for that significant change, but they really just don't.
The airlines are really counting on the fact that consumers are not aware of their rights. And I think that's probably one of the most important things to be aware of is, even if you are due a refund and you reach out to the airline, whether that's via Twitter or, even, calling them, they're going to try to push you to that voucher, and, they're going to make the assumption that you don't know that you are actually due a refund. And a lot of times what we're seeing is, you have to push for that a little bit and make them aware that what you're entitled to. If the airline cancels your flight, they do owe you a cash refund. And typically what we're seeing is as soon as you do that, they will give you the refund, but they're not going to just offer it up right away.
Yep. It's definitely, you're kind of on your own because the airlines, are struggling to survive, without entering bankruptcy. So if they can keep your cash in any way, they're going to kind of bend some of their internal rules to do that. So know your rights. Again, thriftytraveler.com/refunds. You can check out this pretty easy to understand flow chart that'll kind of direct you, whether you want a voucher or a refund, what is going to be your best course of action. And the big thing is, if you have a future flight, is just to wait, try to, hope for a cancellation or a significant schedule change and get that cash refund. So the next question is just along those lines. Carrie asks, I've got flights to London, upcoming on May 18th. I want my money back. Last time I looked, they were only offering vouchers good for a year. This is through United. So the big thing here is the airlines aren't usually going to direct you clearly to a refund. They might briefly mention it or bury it, kind of in an email. And some are better than others. It's not always that way. But knowing your rights, with that, that significant schedule change or, with a cancellation, you need to really know your rights. And then you need to ask for it. A lot of times you won't easily be able to get the refund online. You will either have to call or use Twitter direct message to contact the airline for a refund. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah. And, airlines are even doing a bad job of telling people when their flights have been canceled or changed. So the best thing that you can do is, pull up the confirmation email from the flight that you originally booked, and then go to united.com or your airline website and pull up the flight as it's currently scheduled and do some comparing and see, oh, you know what, they're now routing me through Dulles when I was supposed to, be on a nonstop from Chicago or whatever the case may be. And see if some of these changes have happened without them informing you that would entitle you to a refund. And then bring that to the airline and say, look, the law says you owe me a refund. Please issue that to me. Like Jared said, you really, unfortunately, just have to be proactive. Airlines are not looking out for consumers right now as a general rule. Some are better than others, but it's really up to all of us to know our rights and make the airlines give us what we know, what we know they owe us. And on that note, use the Department of Transportation and filing a complaint as a resource. Use us as a resource to let you know on social media exactly what applies in your situation.
Yeah, I would also add there that some of these flights are still running as scheduled, and at that point, cancellation isn't going to be an option, and taking the voucher is ultimately going to be your best option in that situation, assuming that your flight is still going, it hasn't been changed. So it's not like an all or nothing where you're going to lose it. Taking the voucher is going to be your best option in that case if the flight is still running on time.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big things. One of our recommendations that we have a great YouTube video about booking in uncertain times, and it's if you're going to be making future bookings, make those bookings on a U.S. based airline, because if you do have to cancel, getting a voucher on a U.S. airline, it's just going to be so much easier, than booking with Emirates or Qatar Airways or Singapore. These are amazing foreign airlines, but not necessarily ones that you would want to have a voucher for. So, if you are going to be booking, maybe a late summer or fall or winter trip, try to book on a U.S. airline, American, Delta, or United, where at least if you have to cancel, maybe you'll be able to travel, hopefully. But if you can't, canceling for a voucher with a U.S. based airline is going to be so much easier. So Laura asked, I have a flight with Delta that was changed by more than 90 minutes, which should make her eligible for a refund. When I try to get a refund on their site, it always redirects me to eCredit. So, this is kind of similar to the last question, and we're going to kind of keep answering some of the same questions because we have so many people joining us, and we also have, so many people with different circumstances. And, this is just one of those things that the airlines aren't going to provide an easy path to a refund. You have to know your rights, and then you have to call or use Twitter direct message to ask for that refund. They're not going to give it to you unless you have to ask. So yes, you have to kind of, you have to be, like Kyle said, you have to be proactive and you need to know what to ask for. And again, thriftytraveler.com/refunds to see our flow chart, show it again. And then thriftytraveler.com/COVID-19, all one word, is kind of where all of our COVID, tips are at, as well as news. All right. Great questions, guys. Keep it up. Mayada asks, would you recommend taking advantage of discounted flight rates and book anyway during COVID, knowing your price is locked in at a later date? So I'll take this very quickly because it's kind of flight deal related, and that's kind of my realm with Thrifty Traveler Premium. I say, traveling in the future, in the next, you can book out 11 months right now. It's a very personal decision. A lot of people have to travel, and then some of us, want to travel for leisure. We want to get out there and explore the world again. And I'm not going to say, one way or another. And I don't honestly even know what travel is going to be like in 3 to 6 months. But if you're confident that you want to get out there and you want to travel, booking now with some fares that have been the lowest that we have ever seen them, now is a great opportunity to, travel on the cheap. There's no question. And let's just be honest. I mean, there's going to be less crowds, some of those big, tough to find bucket list locations that can usually be very packed with people. Travel is going to be pretty quiet for the next, 1 and 2 years. A lot of the airline analysts and executives are saying, at least 2 to 3 years before things really they expect to return to normal. And so if you want to be traveling and it's safe and it makes sense and, the world starts opening up again, now is a great time to book. And also now is a great time to book because of those liberal cancellation policies, that if you end up being uncomfortable with traveling in the future, the ability to cancel for a voucher is just pretty amazing. And of course, like I said before, always be booking with an airline that you'd be comfortable having a voucher with. So we always recommend US-based airlines just because so easy to reuse those vouchers.
Yeah,
just echoing.
Go ahead, Nick.
All right. So I was just going to say, echoing Jared's comments a little bit there. I think if you're booking right now for future travel, like Jared said, it's not the time to travel right now, but arguably it's probably one of the best times to be booking future travel. And at the end of the day, your biggest risk or what you're sacrificing if you can't go is a voucher that you're going to end up with. So if you're comfortable with a voucher, and like Jared said, we are recommending booking on U.S. airlines just for the fact that if you do end up with a voucher, it's going to be easier to use. That really is your biggest risk right now. It's your risk is low as far as losing money on a future booking. The risk that you're running there is you're going to end up with a voucher, which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
All right, let's move on.
And we've made the decision to not post flight deals on our website, and that we send to Thrifty Traveler Premium members who get international fare deals. We're only sending those from August and on. So when we're talking about booking future travel, we're not talking about getting on a plane tomorrow or next month even, but really the summer, fall, winter, as far out now as April 2021. So there are, as Jared alluded to, there are a lot of great deals out there for those future months when hopefully it will be safe to travel again.
Yeah, I know I speak for our team. We have some fall and winter, trips already planned. Of course, with those pretty liberal cancellation policies, we may or may not go. And, if we do have to cancel, at least, like we've discussed, you can get a voucher. All right, Andrew has a great question. He asks, I need to try to get a refund for KLM tickets that we booked on Priceline. So Priceline is an online travel agency. Andrew didn't book directly. Is the third-party website, Priceline in this case, the best place to start? or the actual airline? Kyle, could you kind of just dive into this one? I know it's a little complex, but there's so many people in this situation.
Yeah. So generally speaking, if you booked through an online travel agency, Expedia, Kayak, Priceline, whatever it is, you will have to go through that third party, that middleman, in order to cancel your flight and either get your money back or get a voucher if you're not eligible for a refund. That being said, there are some tricky cases where that doesn't appear to be the case. So what I would say is I would start right away by getting on the phone with Expedia or Priceline, but also send a direct message to your airline. Most of the world's major airlines are on Twitter and allow you to message them privately, and are on Facebook and allow you to message them privately as well. So it doesn't hurt to send that airline your details of your trip with your confirmation number and say, you know what, I would like to cancel this for a refund. Can you please process this? Most times that airline is going to say, we see here that you booked through Priceline, you're going to need to contact them. But it's definitely worth just sending out a quick message to your airline to see if you're able to cut out the middleman and just get it taken care of.
Yeah, and Kyle, so a lot of times, if you just want a voucher, but you book through Priceline, a lot of times you could go to KLM and ask for a voucher, and that, for the most part, is relatively easy, correct?
Yeah, that seems to be the case. It seems to be more often if you're just trying to get a voucher for future travel, you can go directly to that airline versus a refund where 99 times out of 100, if not more often, you're going to actually need to go through that third-party booking service. But either way, I would always just say try both. It doesn't hurt to send out a quick 1-minute message to your airline to see if they can help you out a little faster. But yeah, the general rule is whoever you booked with, you're going to have to go through them in order to get this resolved, especially if you're trying to get your money back.
Yeah, Nick, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of what our recommendations are for, booking future travel as far as, do we recommend people booking through Priceline, Expedia, or booking direct?
Yeah, generally speaking, in normal times, which these are not, those are certainly fine OTAs to book through. But if you have the option right now, what we're telling people is just book directly through the airline, because if things go wrong or you need to cancel your flight, or this exact situation where you're trying to cancel a flight or get a voucher, it's just going to be so much easier to work directly with the airline than through one of the OTAs, even the major ones like Priceline, Expedia, Kayak. So if there's not a pricing difference right now, it's just going to be so much easier to book directly through whatever airline you're trying to book through.
Yeah, book direct. Even with hotels, sometimes you can save quite a bit booking a hotel, through Expedia, Kayak, etc. But a lot of times, if you sign up for, a hotel loyalty program, log in, and then you book, directly through the hotel, you can save quite a bit of money. So, we talk about booking direct for airlines, making your life a little bit easier, booking direct through hotels, when you need to cancel. So important. One of the other tips that we have in one of our YouTube videos on booking future travel in these uncertain times is, always to be booking travel that's refundable. So obviously these airline bookings, that have, the ability to cancel for a voucher, that's a way that it's, refundable. It's not cash refundable, but you can cancel if you need to. If you're booking a future, cruise or hotel or tour, definitely be booking one that's cancelable, in some way or another. You might have to pay a little bit more, but I would say, for your peace of mind and just kind of the unknown future of travel, always be booking ones, whatever kind of future travel you have that is cancelable or refundable in some fashion. All right, let's keep on moving. Kimberly has a great question. She says, in March, I canceled before knowing if a flight was canceled through Delta. I was issued a voucher. Can I go back and get my money back instead?
Generally speaking, no. If you decided to cancel a flight just because you looked at the situation and you said, you know what, I don't want to take this flight. I don't feel safe traveling right now. And only after that did the airline decide to actually cancel your flight or change it. In the eyes of the airline, you had already agreed to drop your flight in exchange for a voucher. So the airline would be under no obligation to give you, your money back instead. That being said, there are definitely some cases where airlines have canceled flights, pressured people to take vouchers when they should have been eligible for a refund. So if that's the case for you, the Department of Transportation has said to the airlines, look, you airlines out there who have canceled flights informed passengers and told them they could only get a voucher rather than get their money back, you have to go back to travelers and offer a refund instead. So if that applies to you, if you didn't know you were eligible for a refund at a time and just took a voucher because that's what the airline told you could get, definitely go back to the airline and say you would like a refund instead. The Department of Transportation is very, very clear in this. They are not going to treat airlines kindly if they don't go back and treat these customers right.
In that same vein, this is, again, we talked about this earlier, but this is why we are recommending to wait before you cancel any flights. If your flight, let's say it's scheduled for June 30th at this point, and it's looking more and more like the flight's not going to be canceled, you can request a voucher all the way up to check-in time of that flight. You don't need to do it a certain amount of time before, 2 weeks before or anything. So even if you are, very confident you're not going to get on that airplane, just wait it out as long as you can. And there's going to be a time, if we're talking June 30th here, June 29th, if the flight hasn't been canceled, it's likely not going to be. But the actual process of getting your voucher at that point should be, no more difficult than it was if you did it today. So again, just wait it out. A lot of things, can happen between now and June 30th. And as I said earlier, a lot of the airlines haven't fully dealt with their schedule out into this summer. So I think we're still going to see a lot of changes coming in the near future.
All right, great. Let's keep moving on. All right, next question is how long should you wait to hear from the airline about your refund before filing a complaint with the U.S. Department of Transportation? Or should you only file a complaint when your refund request is rejected?
I would definitely try with the airline first. Some are much better than others. In our experience, both Delta and American have generally said, if you come to them and ask for a refund and point out that, you are legally owed a refund, both airlines have been very accommodating on that first ask. If you are eligible for a refund and you know that, and your airline is still saying no, that's when I would first point out to the airline that you're going to file a Department of Transportation complaint against them for a refund, and then subsequently file that complaint. In our experience, these complaints with the DOT only take a couple of days, maybe a week at most. But, if you can sort that out on the front end with the airline first, that whole process is going to move a lot faster. So first ask for a refund, point out that, you know your rights and that you're obligated to get one, threaten a complaint, file that complaint, and then let the process play out. That's kind of the playbook that we follow here.
All right, let's keep moving on. Ronald asks, we booked a flight from Uganda to South Africa. So this is important that the DOT rules don't apply because it does not touch U.S. soil. On South African Airways using Cheapo Air, which is a third-party online travel agency like Priceline or Expedia or Kayak. Paid for it a long time ago and have paid our credit card bill. South African Airways is now out of business. What do I do? Now, South African Airways, is it, Kyle or Nick, completely out of business, or is it in some kind of bankruptcy reorganization?
It's in limbo. I don't think we really know the full answer to that yet. I think it could still reemerge in some shape. So it might be a little too early to say that. I would say work with Cheapo Air first on this. If that flight isn't going to happen, Cheapo Air isn't on the hook for paying South African for it. So, hopefully Cheapo would just, give you that refund because that flight is not going to depart, obviously, depending on when it's scheduled for. And then absent that would be a chance to file a credit card chargeback for, unrendered service. Obviously, you would have to challenge that with Cheapo Air, which, that's why you would want to approach Cheapo Air first. And Jared, you can speak to kind of the time constraints of filing a credit card chargeback. This customer said that, they booked this a long time ago. So unfortunately, it might make that part of it a little trickier. But definitely talk with Cheapo Air first on this.
Yeah. So generally, you can only file a chargeback through your credit card company within 120 days of purchase. So, if it's been more than 4 months, a chargeback might not be possible. You could always contact your credit card company and ask them and request a chargeback given the circumstances. Depending on which kind of credit card you have, they might be able to help you. It's a tough spot. And, that's why, for future flight bookings, we always recommend, using Google Flights to search. Our Thrifty Traveler Premium subscribers, when we put out flight deals, we always typically recommend to book directly through the airline. Search with Google Flights, book directly through the airline, because then we don't have these third parties that we're working through. Kyle started talking about, is Cheapo Air obligated to refund that South African Airways purchase? We don't know, because we don't understand really what the business back end is. Is the cash that you give Cheapo Air immediately pass through to South African? Does Cheapo Air retain that cash and then pay them shortly before the flight? More than likely, it's straight pass through. So that money, if the airline's bankrupt, it could be gone. The airline's kind of in limbo. So reach out to Cheapo Air, like Kyle said, and then in the future, always book direct if you can. I know it's so frustrating, and these are just such strange times, but yeah, just trying to protect yourself as much for future travel by booking direct, is going to save you some time. And Ronald, I know it's so frustrating given the circumstances, because you're trying to play by the book, and it's still you get burned. All right, we got a points and miles question for you, Nick. Andrew asked, for airline tickets booked through the Chase Ultimate Rewards portal, how does that work? Do you get refunded cash or points? Also, how does the 1.5 times points for travel factor in? So let's answer the first one. So you have a Chase Ultimate Rewards portal booking with an airline flight. What are your options?
Yeah, so I've seen a couple different data points on this as far as how Chase is handling this. If you're okay with taking an airline voucher instead of getting a refund in the form of your credit card payment or Chase Ultimate Rewards points, just work directly with the airline. In that case, the airline's probably just going to give you the voucher and be done with it. If you want a cash refund or your Ultimate Rewards points back, you're going to need to work through Chase. And I'm not sure if I know the specifics on criteria for each. Kyle or Jared, if you guys can speak to that, that'd be awesome. I haven't seen anything as far as them pushing back on refunding points or cash if the flight is truly canceled and you're due a refund. All of the banks seem to be kind of handling this differently as far as American Express membership rewards points, but I haven't seen specifically how Chase is handling refunding points.
Yeah, you're going to have to work directly through Chase. If you want to get your points back, you kind of have to ask for that. And they're going to have to guide you through the process. And like you've kind of alluded to, if you booked with Citi Thank You points, or you booked through Amex membership rewards, I booked a hotel booking with Amex membership rewards, and I canceled that booking because it was fully refundable. And I just got, $1,000 back on my Amex statement. I lost the 100,000 points, and it turned into $1,000 cash. But that didn't seem like that bad of a deal for me. I could have contacted Amex. They could have taken that statement credit, turned it back into points. But again, there's so many nuances to this, whether it's an airline booking, whether, you get a voucher or it's a cancellation. You really just need to pick up the phone and talk to Chase or Amex or Citi to kind of let them guide you through the process. Go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say an important thing to remember with these, Chase Ultimate Rewards, Amex membership rewards, and Citi Thank You points is when you are booking a flight through these portals, essentially what the bank is doing is taking your points and they are going to the airline directly and essentially buying a cash ticket. So the airline sees your ticket as a cash ticket, and the bank is essentially spending your points in the form of cash. So, like Jared said, they will probably just refund you cash. And if you wanted that turned back into points, Likely they can do that if you request it, but it may not be like their first instinct to do that. So just get the refund is probably step one. Step two is if you want those turned back into points, they can probably do that.
I know for me personally, I'm actually pretty happy to take the cash right now, because it's like when will I use those points in the future? It's kind of unknown, but again, that's very personal decision. All right, let's roll into the next question. Michael has another one. Have you posted the DOT information somewhere to use as a reference? Kyle, can you give Michael some guidance on that?
Yeah, so there was, we have an article. You can find it under thriftytraveler.com/COVID-19. It's titled something like U.S. government to airlines, stop denying refunds. And what this is from April 3rd, I believe. And this is when the Department of Transportation issued an order to U.S. airlines saying, look, guys, you've got to stop denying refunds for flights that get canceled or get significantly delayed. You have to go back to passengers who accepted vouchers for canceled flights when they should have been eligible for a refund. This, April 3rd enforcement order is a great resource that you can use to point to the airlines when you're fighting for that refund and say, look, this is what the Department of Transportation said in April. You owe me my money back. So again, that story is called U.S. government to airlines, stop denying refunds, something like that. It's under that thriftytraveler.com/COVID-19 page as well, though it's pretty far deep in there because April 3rd feels like about a decade ago. And, we're writing about coronavirus and COVID-19 nonstop these days.
All right, we've got time for a couple more questions. The first one, Kevin Davis asks, is aspirational travel even worth it for the foreseeable future? So for those of you guys who don't know what aspirational travel is, it's like business or first class travel. So using your points and miles, or, if you can find a cheap cash fare to, fly up front. Kevin says, sure, there are deals, but I want the full experience. What's the fun of drinking Krug champagne through a face mask? And I'll take that one initially. Kevin, I think that there's definitely something to be said, about, aspirational travel, business or first class. We don't even know what that really looks like. We might see, where there's going to be a lot more space up front with less business travelers, just less travelers in general. So you might, actually receive some pretty good service and it not be as busy. Not that business or first class is typically that busy anyhow. But it might be, best to save your miles and, use them for flying economy. It might make a lot more sense. One of the big things right now is, using your points and miles for aspirational travel is so much easier than it was, 3-6 months ago. There's so much award availability and it's easier to book. Kyle and Nick and I were talking yesterday about, flying the longest flight in the world from Newark to Singapore on Singapore Airlines. And that used to be pretty tough to book in business class with points and miles. And right now it's super easy to book through one of their partners, ANA, round trip for, 130,000 something miles, which is a great deal round trip. And something you couldn't book before. And it's just so much easier to cancel flight bookings that have been made with miles because, for the most part, you can just have those points redeposited for a small fee or no fee at all now with some of the cancellation policies. And you don't have to worry about vouchers. You don't have to worry about anything. The big one that we are concentrating on quite a bit through our Thrifty Traveler Premium Flight Deal Notification Service is Delta Airlines. Using your Sky Miles, that is the number one way that we're recommending people book future travel at this time, whether it's domestic travel or international travel. So if you're going to be in economy, basic economy, business class or first class, using Sky Miles, it is incredibly easy. You can make the booking as long as you book it, within the window of the next, I think couple months or the next, 30 days. I'm not exactly sure what Delta's policy is, but you're going to be able to cancel that future booking made now. And you can just have those Delta Sky Miles redeposited right back into your Sky Miles account and your taxes and fees refunded. And you can cancel it any time. You don't have to worry about, some of those schedule changes we were talking about or a cancellation. You can do it yourself. So while it's great to book with cash and you can get a voucher, booking with those Sky Miles, you have the power to cancel at any time and just have those points redeposited. I know probably the first points booking that I'm going to be making is going to be with Sky Miles, just because of how easy it is to use.
Yeah, I would just add quickly. Sorry, Kyle, we're doing that a couple times here. Like Jared said, the example of Singapore, the longest flight in the world. Personal experience, I was looking to book that flight, back in February, which seems like a lifetime ago now, for next January. And there was 4 days on the entire 11-month flight schedule that you could actually use your points for what Singapore calls a saver level award. And now, obviously with the situation, all those dates that I was looking at, pretty much, anything into next year, it's wide open. You can book a first class seat on that, a business class seat on that longest flight in the world. So, Kevin, I would say it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. There's arguably never been an easier time to find award space for that international travel or aspirational travel, just because of how available a lot of those seats are and how desperate some of the airlines are to put people's butts in those seats. And at the same time, what's that experience going to be like next year? I don't think anyone fully knows the answer to that, but, like Jared alluded to, with your points bookings, it's just going to be a lot bit simpler, depending on what program you're booking with, to just, straight up cancel that and get your points and miles back and any cash that you paid for, taxes and fees. So, again, little to no risk, depending on what program you're booking with, to actually book something. And it's, much, much easier to find award space right now than it typically is. So that's what I would say the silver lining of it is right now.
Yeah, I would say book something now, capitalize on this award space for some of those aspirational business class and first class seats. Book as far in advance as you can, out into March, April even, if that makes sense for your travel plans, and then start to see how the situation unfolds. Is that experience going to be what you hope to get out of those points and miles with, the dining, the champagne, the service, whatever it is you're looking forward to. And then, if it's clear that, the service and the experience is not what it was, what you were hoping for, capitalize again on, this more liberal ability to cancel and get your points back for free or for a small charge in most airline programs. That's what I would personally do.
All right, so here is the last question. It's from Annie, and she says, what is the outlook for traveling domestically this summer? Will scheduled flights most likely be canceled or rescheduled? Kyle, if you kind of want to take a stab at this one first.
Yeah, as Nick has mentioned a couple of times, I think we haven't gotten to the point where airlines have really started messing with their schedules in June and onward. So what you can book right now is probably going to look a lot different from what actually takes off in June and July and August. What that looks like, actually, how many flights airlines are running, I think that kind of remains to be seen. I would definitely expect a lot fewer flights than, what we, experienced last summer. Probably quite a bit more flights involving connections than you might be used to, especially to smaller cities. So it's really tough to say, but I would for sure expect, if you're sitting down planning out your travel for the summer in hopes of traveling in July or August or whenever it might be, I would definitely expect some changes if you book today based upon, when you actually get on that flight, when that flight takes off, whether you have a connection or not. Again, airlines just haven't really taken a hard look at their schedules for the summer and fall yet. They're really focused just on this kind of early spring period that we're in right now, and in terms of just trying to figure out how much demand there actually is.
All right, great. So just kind of in closing, I just want to thank everyone so much for their amazing questions. I know we didn't get to all of them. Feel free to send us messages on social media, or once this is fully posted to YouTube for review in the future. I know there's so many of you guys that have joined us in the last few minutes. This will be posted in its entirety in just a few minutes after we're done here. Make sure to drop your questions in the comments below, and someone on our team will definitely get in there to answer them. If you want to know, where our resources are at, go to thriftytraveler.com. / COVID-19, all one word, COVID-19. That's our coronavirus, travel resource center. If you are looking for getting a refund on a future flight, or you're not sure what you want to do, we have this handy little flow chart, and it's available in PDF format or image format at thriftytraveler.com / refunds. Our big thing is we are consumer advocates for you guys, and it's knowing your rights to a refund when you're due one. So go to thriftytraveler.com / refunds to learn more. I know we have a great video as well by Mrs. Thrifty Traveler here on our YouTube channel. Make sure you're checking out all of our new YouTube videos as well. And of course, we're going to be doing probably another video like this either next week or the week after that, answering more of you guys' questions, because I know it's just such a difficult time for travelers and knowing, what to do, because it is confusing and the airlines haven't made it any easier. So, that's what Thrifty Traveler is here for, to help guide you through, this process. And if you have any questions, shoot us a message on social media or at help@thriftytraveler.com, and we will be for sure to reply and reach out. So on behalf of the whole Thrifty Traveler team, thanks for tuning in, and we'll chat later. Thanks, guys.